Hello and welcome to the first virtual talk in MISC Art Institute's 6-month series of conversations with leading industry experts. My name is Oliver Farrell. I'm the Education Program Manager at MISC Art Institute, and I'm your host for this talk. What is contemporary art? Our speaker is Gallery Bawa Director Bandar Al Wazzan. QAD National, Al Wazzan graduated from Northeastern University in Boston in 2020 with a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and specializing in management and marketing. In 2020, Al Wazzan also launched the online gallery Bawa. Since its launch, Bawa has had 11 solo exhibitions, represented 19 artists, and sold over 100 works of art. That's no small feat for a new business in the midst of a global pandemic. The success of Gallery Bawa places Al Wazzan on the forefront of new gallerists leading the contemporary art scene within the region. Today's talk will be recorded and we will upload the video to the MISC YouTube account. Throughout the talk, attendees are invited to ask questions and we will try and find some time at the end to answer some of these. I would now like to welcome our speaker, Bandar Al Wazzan.
Thank you very much. I think someone in the chat says she can't hear, so maybe someone else could just confirm that they could hear or they can't hear. Audio is fine. Okay, cool, man. Thank you very much, Oliver. Thank you so much for having me. And MISC, thank you as always again for having me. I always enjoy being here, and I appreciate it so much. So I think it's going to be a really casual conversation. It's going to be fun. But before we start, I think I just wanted to provide like some sort of context into the global art market. What we're going to do, I believe, after 40 minutes is we'll just open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions throughout this talk, feel free to ask. More than happy to answer. And what I want to start off by doing is just share my screen and show the global art market in context, and then maybe a bit about how our region compares to the global art market. So I'm going to start doing that now. 1 second. Okay. So what I've been looking at for the past few days is this report. And this is a report by Art Basel and UBS. They have an annual report every year, just like a basic summary of what happened in the art market. It's going to be a bit boring, I think, for the next 5 minutes. I love it. I love these numbers and stuff. It's so interesting. And I think honestly, for anyone in the art market, this is like a very valuable piece of information. I think whether you're an artist or a collector, auction house, gallerist, this is like, it provides so much information for you to understand where you stand in the global art market. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to summarize it. It's 180 pages, but I'll give you the basic things that I found really interesting. So the first thing, we're just going to show a bit of the key findings. So they even summarized it here. And just to give you some sort of context into how small the art market actually is, the global sales, this is in 2020, by the way, I thought this year was really cool because it sort of represented a major shift between traditional and contemporary, traditional and new, moving into online. So this is really important to know. The global sales of art, the entire market is valued at $50 billion in 2020. And this is down 22%, of course, from 2019 because of the pandemic, 27% from 2018. This looks like a big number, but I think if you put it into context, you understand how small the actual art market is in the greater scheme of things. So what I did was I pulled up the Fortune 500 companies, just to give an idea of like where the art market stands. The biggest company at the moment is Walmart, okay, and they have $550 billion of revenue. That's 11 times more than the entire art market, the entire global art market. So if you were to actually take the art market and turn it into a company and put it on this list, the entire global art, this is crazy to me. It would rank all the way down here at 63, 62, between Cisco and HCA Healthcare. So if you turn the entire art market into a company, it's basically just as big as Cisco Systems, which This is in 2020 at least, but generally this is how big the art market is. So it's really small, it's really tiny. And another thing I wanted to also mention is that the three major art hubs are the US, the UK, and Greater China. So just giving a basic crash course into the art market. All of these three, they represent 82% of the whole art market. The US is the biggest with 42%. Greater China and the UK are equally 20%. So the rest is just the rest of the world. That's how monopolized this market is. Next, what I want to show is page 26. Okay, so this is where I fall under. These are dealer sales. Obviously, everyone took a big hit, especially dealers. But what I thought was really interesting here was that dealers were able to, and dealers, by dealers, I also mean galleries, like private galleries. They were able to maintain profitability in 2020 because they were able to cut major operating costs of like art fairs, shipping huge crates across the world, you know. So 28% of the dealers said they were more profitable than in 2019 during a pandemic, okay? And 18% said they had a stable net profit. The other thing I thought was interesting here was the priorities of the dealers, how it shifted from 2019 to 2020. So in 2019, they were more focused on art fairs, getting their reputation up. These are galleries. And in 2020, they started to focus more on existing clients. They started focusing more on online sales and finding ways to cut costs. And I can attest to this, like this is exactly what, like, I can't really talk so much about Bawa in the context of this because we started in 2020, but I think I can relate to this a lot by just talking about existing clients. Online sales is a big thing for me, of course. You know, and then the next thing I want to talk about is page 31. So, sorry. So in 2019 to 2020, obviously every sector of the art market took a hit, right? But the main thing is that contemporary art, compared to all the other older types of art, actually maintained sort of, they didn't lose as much, only 20% compared to these 39% of older decorative antiques, which just goes to show that the entire market is still sort of focused more on contemporary, even when the market isn't doing so well. And speaking of contemporary, I thought this was really interesting. The report actually had to define what contemporary art is. And I think it's important to just understand that the major difference between contemporary and modern art, it's not the exact same thing. Lots of different people have different definitions of what contemporary art is, you know. But what was interesting is that for this report, they actually had to define it. So what and this is what auction houses do as well, by the way. So post-war and contemporary is grouped together, and it's defined as artists born after 1910 specifically. Even if they're deceased after 1910, they still fall under contemporary art. Modern art is defined anything between 1875, 1910. Impressionist is 1820 to 1874, and old masters are like the 400 years between 1250 and 1821. So they needed to define these things in order to actually go on with this report, and I thought that was interesting. For me, what contemporary art is what's changing the market, like what's pushing the barrier, and also art's made by living artists, you know. So maybe NFTs, virtual reality, augmented reality, these to me are contemporary types of art. The next thing, sorry I'm talking so fast because I had a lot of coffee, man. Okay, so the next thing here is the costs of gallerists, which is so interesting to see. So in 2019, 26% of the costs went to art fairs. Like that's how focused dealers were in terms of upping their reputation, being in these big art, like fancy art fairs. That completely got shut down to 16% due to the pandemic. And then on the opposite end, what happened was the cost of IT doubled. So like the cost of website maintenance, cost of social media marketing, anything to do with their presence online completely doubled, which I could say is really important. I mean, my biggest cost, of course, running a digital gallery is website maintenance, making sure that presence is strong. So that's really interesting. Next, I think this is really interesting for artists. So if you're an artist in this call, I think this is really important to look at. This is sort of like the share of artists represented by different types of galleries, right? This is the spread of galleries in terms of annual revenue. And basically, in a basic sense, as you know, as galleries grow in size, they start to represent more established artists and start to represent less emerging artists. So when you're just starting out, and I could say for Bawa, this is where I stand right here. I focus mostly on emerging artists, and then every once in a while I would have a mid-career or established artists such as Ahmed Mata. But for the most part, it's first-time solo exhibitions. And I think artists and galleries should both look at this and see the trajectory of where they're trying to go. As you grow, you start to represent more established artists, lower your risk as you grow as a company. And artists should know that they can't just stay here all the time. They have to keep moving up the ladder of galleries, you know. And then the second last thing I wanted to show was this. So in art fairs, this is sort of talking about price transparency on online virtual rooms. So artworks that had a price attached to it where it's transparent and you could see the price, those generated 92% of all the inquiries. And then the artworks that didn't have a price, where you had to actually reach out to the gallery and ask them what the price was, those only accounted for 8% of all the inquiries. So that just goes to show that price transparency is so important in terms of profit also. And also it's just so annoying to like reach out to a gallery and ask them the price. And they have this sort of like idea that if they're not showing the price, then they're mysterious or you know, exclusive or whatever, but it's actually just slowing down the whole process. Finally, what I wanted to show is this. This is the most important thing. The online art market. It doubled in size from 2019 to 2020, the entire online art market. It went from 9% of sales to 25%, to a quarter of all annual sales, which is, it's insane. That means 25% of all art market transactions happened online. And dealers believe that this is going to just be bigger consistently over time. So that's basically the global art market, just in summary. But what I wanted to talk more about is where we stand as a region, the Middle East. Where do we actually fall within this? Because there's been no mention of it so far. And actually, if you search Middle East, you only get one mention of Middle East in 180 pages of this. This is a global art market report, okay? And if there's only one mention of the Middle East, it's insane to me. And we're just sort of thrown in with Europe and Africa as the remaining 33% of auction markets, of auction sales. So I wanted to delve deeper into this and give more context to where we stand. There's another report, which is Deloitte and Art Tactic report. And I actually had to go back to 2019 in order to find some serious mention of the Middle East. And this is it. This is where they talk about the Middle East in 2019. And this is how small and insignificant we are compared to the entire global art market, and the numbers talk. So auction sales in 2018 for Middle Eastern art was 26 million. That's nothing, and that's down 19% from 2017, and it's been slowly going down. And then this is the really scary number, which is less than 1% of the global art market. So we're so insignificant and small. Like we don't even make up 1% of the global art market. And then I thought, okay, maybe we grow over time. So I checked what the next report was, and this is the 2021 report. And I searched Middle East, and we don't even make any mention. There's no mention of the Middle East in the next report, you know, which just goes to show auction sales have decreased so much that these major global art market reports don't even consider us as important anymore. So I thought that was just to provide some context into where we stand before we go into this conversation further. There is no mention of Middle East in this major art market report. So I thought that was really interesting. And then we can move on. We can move on from here at the conversation.
Well, I think we should probably pick up from that last point. So you, as the director of Gallery Bawa, are now entering into this art market where you show us, okay, there's a global market of 50 billion, okay, and the Middle East is making up what seems to be under 1% of that. What do you wish to see Bawa do in the coming years to sort of help the Middle East boost that number?
I mean, look, for Bawa specifically, it's just one gallery in an entire ecosystem that hasn't been developed yet. So in order for Bawa to grow alongside the art market as a whole needs to fill in all the gaps that it has. You know, we have a few galleries, we have some auction houses in Dubai, but there's not much, you know. We don't really have major art fairs. We have the first Ben Ali, which just came out, which was amazing in Saudi, you know, that's insane. But in order, like, this is just one gallery, and I'm doing my part, or I'm trying to do my part in representing more artists. But I think what the goal is, or what like the major like dream is, right, is that if you go into like an art fair in New York or the UK, or you know, anywhere in the UK or in China, all these crazy art fairs, and I see like a Kuwaiti artist, or I see like a Bahraini, Saudi artist, whatever, I would be really shocked at the moment if I saw that. I would be like really proud, you know, unbelievably proud if I saw something like that. But which is wrong. It shouldn't be the case like that. It shouldn't be that crazy. It should just be a normal thing where you just pass by and you see a Kuwaiti artist in an art fair, a major art fair. Like, it shouldn't be a shock. So I think that's the final goal. You know, like, anyone in the world, not just for me, but anyone in the world who passes by a Khaliji artist, specifically Khaliji, should just know what it is. You know?
Yeah, so why do you feel that there's a lack of artists from the region being represented on a global stage?
In terms of artists, like, I think there are artists available. I think we have amazing artists, but I just don't think they get the opportunity to present on a larger stage. Going back, I think, like, to that graph where I showed you, where emerging artists slowly over time grow their representation in terms of galleries. We don't have that. We only have like a few on this end, and then we have a few all the way on this end. So there's this massive gap of mid-sized galleries that we're missing, you know, focused specifically, I mean, like, on Khaliji art. We have a bunch of really good international galleries, you know, but without that consistent, stable progression, like, it's not gonna happen. It's just all over the place, you know. So that's why you might see like an established artist jump from a really reputable gallery back down to a new emerging gallery. Like, it's just it just doesn't make sense, you know. The ecosystem isn't there yet, and that's why it doesn't work. It's just a case of needing more institutions to come up and you know, and represent these artists once they're finished, and build that ladder, you know. We don't really have a ladder. We have like a few steps.
So what type of institutions or ecosystem, or I guess art spaces that would help create an ecosystem would you like to see in the region?
Probably like more galleries. I think more physical galleries for sure, where it just becomes a part of the society. It shouldn't be a strange thing to walk into a gallery, you know. I think residencies are really important. You know, we don't really have enough of that. I'm talking specific, like most of what I talk about is specifically in Kuwait. So we don't really have enough residencies where artists could just, I mean, the quality of production is so low. And that's why you see a lot of artists getting like sponsorships to go abroad or do a residency in New York or anywhere in the US or in the UK, because all the materials are there and they're ready, and because you have all of these materials, you're able to experiment and understand who you are as an artist. But here, I mean, like in Kuwait, like we don't even have like screen printing. Like, I don't even know where to get a screen print done, you know. We have one risograph printer in Kuwait. We don't even have like pottery studios, or I mean, we have a few. They're emerging, and I think what I'm seeing most like this past year is a lot of like younger people opening their like studios. You know, I don't think same in Saudi, man. I don't know. Like I went to Misk a few months ago, and like the screen printing studio there is insane. I mean, that's amazing, and the workshops there are insane. It's just it's building, it's happening there at least, you know. But here it just feels dead here. But I think those are important residencies, you know. For
yeah.
sure.
And especially the idea of building an ecosystem, and I suppose that's sort of what Bawa is doing in some ways by showing such a diverse range of artists from the region, is that you're helping to build this ecosystem, and you're helping to support, like you said, artists who are quite well established as well as emerging artists. But I kind of want to talk about the format of Bawa Gallery in this way, because you're talking about pottery, and you're talking about the need for physical gallery spaces for people to walk into, and that is also helping them to build an education for everyone and that ecosystem. But Gallery Bawa doesn't exist in a physical format. It's an online gallery. And so within that, you haven't actually chosen only to show digital works. You haven't only shown pieces that are from artists working exclusively on the digital format. You're also showing works by artists, or you were showing artworks that are made in the physical format. Could you talk us through some of the reasons behind that decision making?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think as the report just showed, actually I missed one thing, but basically what it said was 1% of all global dealers closed down their galleries, which is a huge percentage, like 1% of all. I believe there was like, I believe they reported 290,000, something like that. I don't want to say anything, but the report is there. So I was already following these galleries before the pandemic, just because I was really interested in the art market. And then seeing them all shut down and then move online, the only thought I had was, okay, all an online gallery is just images and text on a screen on a nicely designed website. So anyone could do that, like anyone could just build a website. There are website builders there. So it just made the most sense. I couldn't leave the house, so the physical idea was just not there. It wasn't even something I thought about. So instead of having a physical space and then closing that down and moving online and planning that for 10 years from now, let me just start in reverse and start online, and then maybe have some sort of physical presence in the future, and obviously as a business starting out, like, you want to maintain your costs as much as possible. And with a digital gallery, as you saw, most dealers did pretty well in this time because they didn't have to worry about any sort of costs or hanging costs, exhibition setting up costs, shipping major crates and crating costs. All of these things are crazy, so that's why it just seemed like a very simple idea. Took a while.
But as you say, Bawa is born in the digital world. Why not show only exclusively digital art?
Because I mean, it's just too much to delve into that. I mean, there was no reason not to be a gallery. I feel like because the definition of a gallery has changed now. When we think of a gallery, we think of like this posh place you walk into, but a gallery could easily be just a digital. I mean, like Amazon, all of these marketplaces online sell physical things, and we're so used to that. The art market typically lags behind usually. So why is it normal that Amazon, all of these places, and eBay sell physical items, but a gallery is too exclusive or too, whatever to sell physical art online? It didn't make any sense to me. And also what the report shows was high net worth individuals or any person became more comfortable spending higher amounts of money online over time for art pieces. So the confidence compared to like 10 years ago is much higher now. Because before they used to have like these really sketchy galleries websites and it didn't look so good, but now, I mean, it's such a normal thing to buy online now, so why shouldn't the art market jump in? That answers your question, right? I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it does. I mean, I actually had an interesting conversation a few weeks ago with a friend of mine who is a website developer, and he was saying, especially post-COVID, for a lot of businesses, trying to explain to them the importance of putting money into your online website, and asking people, how much money do you put into the reception of your building for your business? Because that's the first point of call. Okay, you're going to have 3, 4, 5 times the amount of people go to your website every day and will step foot through your front door. So why are you not putting 3, 4, 5 times the amount of money into your digital presence?
I think, yeah, but I wanted to just make a mention that I think the cost of running a physical space comes with like its benefits, obviously. Like, I'm not saying purely digital is like the best way to go. I think you need to have a balance of both, because the only thing that Bawa was missing, or we tried a few times, is having like physical interactions with people, meeting these people in person. People who are interested in art. Like I know most of these people just as their username on Instagram, collectors, artists. I just know them as their digital persona, But then when you meet them in person, you have a coffee with them, it's completely different, you know. And I think also just having a place where people can just meet and discuss it and have conversations is really important. It's worth that cost. Not for a new business, I don't think, because I would just shoot myself in the foot. But I think it's necessary, you know.
Yeah. And that kind of feeds back into that idea of the ecosystem then. By having a space for artists, for collectors, for people who are interested in the arts to come and meet and discuss and look at art, you then create a network of people who are then interacting with each other in the physical format. And as much as we try and create spaces, even here today, having a online talk in this webinar format, it isn't the same as actually the spontaneous or the incidentals that occur when you have got a physical space for humans to interact in, and especially interacting with art, which is supposed to provoke thought or is supposed to provoke emotion. So for you, is Bawa going to move into a physical space?
I mean, there's so many different ways of going about that. Like, it's not just open a gallery, you know. What I'm thinking for the next step, I don't know if that might be the next way to go about it, because still running a business purely online has more benefits than it has cons. So I think I'm thinking about that. Obviously, it's really important. I'm doing my research in terms of what's the best way to go about it, especially in Kuwait. If I were to open a space, it would be in Kuwait for sure, because that's what we need. At least we need to start somewhere. I think it's safe to say we don't really have any consistently operating galleries, you know, at the moment. So I think it's necessary. But there are other ways of going about it that I want to think about more before saying anything, you know. There's lots of different things.
And would it be Bawa? Would Bawa continue to exist on the online format, and perhaps a new gallery space would be a completely different entity?
Yeah, of course. I think you need it. Like, I think what most galleries are going to find now is that they only have a physical space just to build their brand more, build their reputation, build the community more. And then the online is actually what's going to drive all the sales. That's what I think is the case at the moment. But I think in the future, it's just going to be such a normal thing. Like, of course, 90% of my sales are from online, you know. So I think it's important to have an online presence for any kind of business, not just for art, you know.
Yeah.
And then the physical presence in art is more important than other businesses, I feel, because you're working directly with artists and collectors and the communities. You're directly working with the community. So I think it's necessary.
Well, that's a good place for us to come to our halftime question, which is, what is contemporary art?
It's a big question.
That's a big question.
Yeah. I think so. I think I was like in this when I was in Boston. The what's the museum? MFA, the MFA Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. It had this really cheesy sign on the top. It said, I don't know exactly actually what it said, but it said something along the lines of like contemporary art, or art. Every kind of art was always contemporary at some point, you know. They phrased it better than that, but I think generally that's what they were saying. So for me specifically, and everyone has different definitions, but contemporary art is what's new, what's pushing the barrier, what's pushing the envelope without bursting it, you know. Anything that really shocks you. And contemporary art is the kind of art that makes me want to do this more, you know. When I pass by something that just blows my mind, you know. Anything to do, at the moment, anything to do with NFTs, anything to do with virtual reality. If an artist is challenging themselves to learn about these new mediums, that's contemporary art. I think contemporary art could still be painting and sculpture, still. Yeah, I think, and made by living artists, most importantly, I think. Obviously it changes a lot, but I think focusing on artists that are living and actually supporting them is like the most important thing, you know, rather than supporting an estate. Or, I mean, even supporting estates is important.
Well, let's actually then let's come back to that graph that you showed us, not the graph, sorry, but the definition that you showed us earlier on, which had contemporary artists were those who were born after the year 1910, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so here we're talking about a global art market that is talking about artists who were born 112 years ago. I mean, this is not contemporary, and especially in terms of the world events that have happened in those 112 years. I mean, we've had 2 world wars and, you know, however many other conflicts, and we have completely changed the face of the planet in that time, and the way that we interact with each other and the way that we interact with art. You know, so much art is now consumed through the digital format, is purchased through the digital format. And so do you feel that contemporary art is perhaps not, or at least in this the context of this definition that you presented earlier on, do you feel that contemporary art is not actually representative of the last 112 years, but actually contemporary art is within a more recent decade?
Yeah, I think there's 2 ways of going about it. It's either you define it in an abstract sense, right? And you say that contemporary art is always like what's just been created, the newest thing, whether it's a painting, even if it's like an impressionist or figurative, purely figurative painting, it doesn't need to represent the abstractions or whatever. Contemporary just means now in its basic sense. It just means what right now. The reason why I think at least a part of the reason why they define it as post 1910 is to segment the market, right? Because there's such major markets, contemporary and what was it, modern, you know. And even I pulled this up also, but even they made a small note about the 1910 thing on the report. It says most artists' categorization is based on date of birth, but there are a small number of artists who are included in different sectors because of their relevance to a particular movement. For example, Francis Bacon, born 1909, and Mark Rothko, born 1903, are put in the contemporary sector, even though the cutoff date is 1910. So they're trying really hard to like not lose Rothko and Bacon, even though it's more than 100 years. Like, that's it. Like, come on, how long are we gonna like dwell on these guys? You know, as amazing as they are, as necessary as they are, they were just like, you can't keep calling them new and it's just, that's part of the monopoly that the auction houses work. These are auction house definitions, by the way.
Exactly, and so an auction house definitions kind of bring us back to the idea of contemporary art also being a market. And while ever we have got a market around what is art, you know, do you feel that there's a corruptibility there?
I mean, I think this is mostly to do with the US and the UK, and I have nothing to do with that. You know, I'm more focused on what's missing here. Like, there's no time to think about whatever's who's not getting representation there. Like, there are other people focused on that at the moment, better people than I am suited to do that sort of thing. Making sure that younger artists, more female artists are represented, artists of color are represented. We have a completely different context here. We're just trying to be on the actual thing. We're not even considered part of it. Like, the report doesn't even bat an eye towards us. You know, that's our issue. That's the issue that we should all be focusing on, and just making sure that everyone's doing their part and making it at least 1%. Like, at least show up on the report first step, and then 1%, and then normal, you know, or whatever. But so I don't really care about the corruptibility there. I'm focused on this now. I don't think we have corruptibility here. I think it's just we're missing in the region specifically. I think in terms of artist representation, I think we have a good spread. For me, for Bawa, what I've been doing so far is like having, you know, 50-50 in terms of female, male, and then a lot of people ask about, okay, what if I'm not born here, but I grew up here? You know, that's still the same as being born here. You know, I think in terms of what you're saying, you know, we're born in the same context, slight differences, but in the end, like, you know, but at the same time, it's important to define your niche in order to grow as a gallery. If you broaden yourself too much, and because it's an online gallery, everyone's like, okay, why not just accept all artists everywhere? there's no way that's gonna work, because like I'm just gonna lose focus, you know, and I don't think anyone should be doing that, you know. So yeah,
definitely. And this idea of the region, I've actually got a question that's coming through the chat here, asking from your experience with Bawa Gallery, whether you see Saudis collecting Kuwaiti art, or do you feel that Saudis are only collecting Saudi art? Do you have any sort of stats on that? Who's buying art?
I can't say stats, obviously, but I can say that for sure we have something really different to other regions, which is each country here is sort of like, in terms of the art market, I kind of just see it as one big thing where like everyone's sort of supportive of each other. Let me just read the question more. How's the response for collectors in the region? I think generally when I represent, I think it's safe to say when I represent a Saudi artist, we get more Saudi collectors. When I represent a Kuwaiti artist, I get more Kuwaiti collectors in a general sense. But on the second layer, we're kind of all supportive of each other, you know. And different collectors have different like preferences in what they collect. But from what I've seen, you can easily see like a Bahraini artist collect a Saudi artist, or sorry, a Bahraini collector collect a Saudi artist, or a Saudi collector purchase a Bahraini artist. I mean, like it just it's like a mess. I mean, at some point, that's why I just put it all under Khalij, you know, because there's no reason to separate.
And
you know.
do you see a age bracket for people to be collecting?
To be collecting, like to start collecting?
Yeah, as collectors.
I think what I saw in the report as well, and I can attest to it, is a lot of younger collectors are popping up now because every gallery sort of moved online. They have a stronger online presence. What I'm focused on specifically is like building new first-time collectors, you know, like guys my age. A lot of guys my age started collecting for the first time, and they were like curious, you know, and there wasn't like a shyness anymore. You know, before there's like this shyness or like this worry of the exclusivity of a massive gallery, walking into a gallery and feeling the need to show off or show the fact that you have to buy something. You don't have to buy anything, but because I think it's online and it's Instagram and WhatsApp and all these things, we all have like this really casual feeling of it, you know. And I think that's why I don't really have like a market on the website. You have to reach out to the gallery because it's important to know who these people are and like build relationships with them, get to know them. Most of them end up becoming friends, you know. So that's really cool, you know. And they feel the need to have it sort of filtered, like where is all the good art? I'm doing my part in showing or filtering good art in the region, or at least art that I can relate to, and I can only hope other people relate to it. So I've seen a lot of younger collectors, basically, in summary. Yeah.
And so how are you actually finding your artists to represent?
I can't say. That's I can't say. I mean, I think what I can say is like for the most part, I spend a lot of time meeting people who know people who know people, and I'm like just always open to seeing what's new, what's happening, and then a lot of times actually after the first few months we started getting portfolio submissions, so that was crazy, you know, like starting to talk to artists who actually submitted their portfolios to the gallery as if like the gallery is like a thing now, which is crazy to see those first portfolio submissions. But for the most part, I'm reaching out to the artist that I can relate to or I like, or you know, a friend introduces me to them, and that's usually how it works. I think we have such a powerful word of mouth here that I don't need to worry about that. But I think you need to put in some effort also to searching. Because, and the final thing I'll just say about this, I think some of the best artists that I came across are artists that have no presence, like online, and they're very strict on their own art as well. I'm not saying that's the right way to go about things. I think you could still be an amazing artist and have a strong presence online. But I think some of the strongest are the ones who are like almost scared to show their work because they're so strict on themselves, trying to make sure that their art is always good. At some point, you need to show your art, you know, but yeah.
But this is also the role of the gallery, and this is sort of the interesting world we've entered now within self-representation of artists through platforms like Instagram, that we have in some ways put the onus back on artists to be self-promotive and to always be pushing their works. And I guess we kind of come back to that question of commodification of art and whether or not it's appropriate for art to only exist within this commodified sense. But look, you don't have to answer that. That's more me musing.
I could say that I think in terms of like, and the numbers also, like I was looking at the report today and they had a section of why people buy art. I wish I could find it, but there's 180 pages, so I can't find it. But basically what I found was that more established collectors buy art. I think, no, what was it? I think, no, the reason for purchasing art in terms of as an asset, because they know it's going to grow in value, is as equal as buying it for emotional value, or as equal as buying it for a hedge against inflation or something like that. But it's not wrong to say that art is bought also as an investment. Like, you can't shy away from that. I'm not gonna lie and say that's not the case. I think that's an equal case. I hope people don't buy it specifically for that. I think it's part of the reason why people buy art. I think it's also a very necessary thing to consider when you purchase a big piece of art, because it is an investment in the end. But what I noticed was that contemporary or like younger collectors, what it said, they bought art mostly to support the artist, like to support the region. And that's what I started seeing more, actually, like younger artists who reached out to the gallery, they fell in love with the artist and they want to support the artist in their career, which is really important, you know. So yeah.
This actually feeds into the next question we have coming from the chat. So with art collection, as they're primarily younger, emerging artists coming out of the Gulf, the most reasonable decision would be to also expand the accessibility to grow young collectors as well.
Yeah.
However, how can we expand the number of younger collectors to help expand the ecosystem and make it sustainable for longer if a lot of the times it's still inaccessible to purchase work? How can we close the gap?
Okay, so I think the main way to close the gap is to be price transparent, be very welcoming. I think price transparency, as I said, is the most important thing. A lot of new galleries that come out, they go one of two ways. Is they make it like a market, which is also bad. Like, they make it like a purely market. I don't talk to the collector. I don't know the collector. They just buy it online and it ships to them, and that's it. There's nothing else. Which is okay. It works in terms of the business, but like, you're not getting to know who these collectors are. You're not learning about them. You're not learning what they're interested in purchasing or supporting, you know? So that's one extreme. The other extreme is being super exclusive and like, I don't talk to you, don't talk to me. I'm not going to show any of the prices. Like, how are you gonna get anyone feeling comfortable purchasing an artwork? And also being reasonable with prices in the greater scheme of things, you know, like, this is something that I'm learning, like balancing finding the right price in order to support the gallery, support the artist, but also the collector isn't paying like a crazy amount, you know. So it's just about being reasonable, not being mysterious or exclusive or whatever, being very open. And that's why I think a physical space helps with that, like just having a hangout spot, you know, where people can talk and stuff.
On that note though, how much conversation do you have with artists around the price point of their art?
Depending on how long the artist has been working, the more the artist has sold before, the more galleries that they've represented with, the bigger the conversation is, because you have more responsibility with that. Actually, I would say you have a big responsibility in both cases, because with established artists, you have the responsibility of not like blowing up their price like crazy, right? And disappointing everyone who's purchased art from them in the past. Or you know, or maybe you price it too low and then everyone's like, I wasted so much money on this or whatever. And then there's the other extreme, which is a first-time solo exhibition, and then being like, you know, being so confident and thinking you can just price it at any price point. And then, because with a first-time solo exhibition, you're setting the foundation for an artist and artist prices, right? And this is what they're going to build off of steadily over time, like that graph I showed you. If you price it too high, then, or if you put them into an auction too soon, and the auction starts some sort of price war that takes the artist price to astronomical levels, it's difficult to come back down from that and build a new base. So it's about being reasonable, finding the balance, and yeah. So there's a big discussion, obviously, looking at past works and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm going to throw another question coming out of the chat.
Yeah.
Would you include patrons and donors / support circles that aim to encourage artists through the gallery? What kind of assistance would be most beneficial for contributors based on those who have previously contributed to Bawa?
Okay. I don't want to say too much about this because, okay. Because being based in Kuwait, specifically being based in Kuwait, I'm used to not getting sort of governmental support or big support. And I prefer that. I prefer that because that makes me focus on the foundation of the business, right? If I get too much support and it's, I think because I'm one of the only galleries at the moment, I don't want to say it's easy. I just feel like because the society is so strong here that everyone wants to support you in every way they can. It's just about avoiding that and making sure you're growing as a business. And the best, honestly, the best kind of support is just buying an artwork. Like that ensures you get something out of it, that ensures the artist is getting supported, that ensures the gallery is getting supported, you know? So the best, I think, support is just buying art from the gallery. That's the best you can do. If I start accepting too many like patrons, I'm just gonna end up being lazy. Like I'm just gonna be like, okay, I could just keep doing this and not sell any art. So being very serious with the business and avoiding that. Although I don't want to, you know, I think it's not smart to just forget about that completely. I think if I have a big project in mind in the future, and I have a few, I think it's important to reach out and talk to donors who get benefits in turn for that. But I don't want to say anything too much more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of coming back to this idea of Q8 being a society of encouraging, do you feel that the encouragement for you and Gallery Bawa has come more because you're an art gallery, which is sort of a newer entity within the society, or is it because you're a young business? What is it that's driving the support from the Q80 society?
It's honestly, no matter what you do, which is an amazing thing, but it can also be a really bad thing if you don't use it effectively. I think no matter what you do, if you have a passion and drive to start like a new company or a new idea or a new project, you're gonna get people backing you. Like as long as you put yourself out there, people are gonna. This is how strong word of mouth and society is here, you know. And this is the greater Khalij, not just Kuwait. Also, this applies to every country. You're gonna get support anyways. I think. Like, just going back to the first post we made, I just posted the logo, and I said what we're gonna do, you know, and it's still the strongest post we've had, you know, just because there was this excitement, right? Or one of the strongest posts, not the strongest post. One of the strongest posts, surprisingly, because there was so much excitement into just someone's passion and everyone's just supportive of that. So it's so easy to just be like, oh, I did my job, I'm done, you know, like people get it. I don't need to do anything more than this. And that was expected from the beginning. Like any sort of project that you do, you shouldn't be worried about not getting support. People love supporting young businesses here. I don't know, it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing that we have that no one else has. And we should use it to our advantage and work towards, or what's the word? Like you work on that, or you act on it. You act on it. Like you act on the support that you're getting because you're gonna get it anyway, you know?
Do you see that same kind of support for artists within Q8?
Towards artists, you mean? Yeah, I think I think that's the case for artists as well. For any business, also for artists. In terms of artists, I think maybe they get too much, honestly. I'd go as far as to say, as long as, no, honestly, because, which is a good thing. It's a really good thing, but also what ends up happening is, as long as you're consistently posting online, as long as you're telling people that I am an artist, I'm an artist, I'm an artist, people are gonna believe that and support you, because we have no foundation to build off of. So, and what ends up happening is, artists and any other business, not just artists, but if you get all of the support, you end up feeling like you did it, you're done, you don't need to challenge yourself anymore. And that's bad. That's a bad side of too much support, you know. And that's why we need a bit more criticism, constructive criticism. That's why I reach out to, like, any idea I have. When I first started with Bawa, I reached out to my friends, like the guys who are like, you know, they're really harsh, you know, like no matter what you do, they're gonna be like, this is a terrible idea. Why are you doing this? You know, and you need that. You need that, but also have it be constructive. And those are the people that you should be focused on, you know. And then using all the support to motivate you into making something bigger and more important, you know. So don't take support 100%. Like it's gonna be there no matter what, because we have that. We're lucky to have that. But act on it also.
So do you feel in Kuwait that there's room for, I suppose it's become a bit of an elusive profession now, but an art critic?
Yeah, I think there's space for that. I think constructive art critic, because I think it's easy to take the persona of like hating everything and not really giving any facts towards or reasoning behind your opinions, you know. So I think it's important to, I don't think you necessarily need to be a critic. I don't think there's any money in it at the moment. I think in the global scheme of things, the idea of being an art critic is kind of dying now. But I think as a friend of the artist, or even as an acquaintance of the artist, you need to be constructively critiquing. Everyone should just, because that's what the artist wants in the end. Like, even you shouldn't be worried about hurting their feelings or whatever. As long as you're constructive, it's gonna benefit them in the long term, you know. So you need to be honest. You can't, or at least share your opinion without telling them what to do. I think that's also, we fall into that trap of like feeling like, you know, I'm such a big critic, I can just tell them what to do and you should do this, you shouldn't do this. I don't think that's right. I think you should just be like, this is what I think, you know. Maybe try this. What do you think of trying this, you know, without being too harsh. Yeah, I think critique is important.
I'm gonna actually jump back into the chat now. We've got a question that's sort of coming off my last question. Do you think the region lacks platforms for art criticism critique? And can such platforms be profitable and generate revenues to run itself?
As I said, I don't think there's money in it at the moment, unless you do it in a unique way. I think I haven't thought about critique enough to think if there's a way to be profitable or generate revenues. The only way I could think is like if you had maybe some sort of critiquing magazine or article or something that people pay a membership for. But I don't really see why people would pay for that, you know, unless it's publicized. I would pay for it for sure, because I like to hear different people's opinions on art, you know, and I think you can't please everyone, so it's necessary. But I don't know if you do it in a unique way, I'm sure there's a way to make it profitable, you know. I'm not one to talk about it. Yeah.
And because art critics not only share criticism, they also share praise, and they also have this incredibly important role within the ecosystem of the arts to see a lot of exhibitions by a lot of different artists from a lot of different parts of the world, and to use their critical thought and to use their knowledge base to then draw conclusions, to make links. And I suppose that they function exactly not only to critique, but also to support, and also to help build boundaries and help build structures within an ecosystem. It's just that thing though, like you said, you kind of need the first foundational blocks, you know, before you get to the all the other bits. So
I think maybe in terms of like being maybe not necessarily a critic, but more of a mentor. Or like if you have like a sort of mentorship program, that I think artists would be okay with subscribing to that. You know, if you had, but you have to have experience. You can't just be a mentor. You have to have some sort of experience in terms of like guiding the artists and being fragile and you know, steering them in the right direction. You know, yeah.
And so then, in terms of mentoring, for a lot of artists, they find their mentors through their arts education.
Yeah.
And so a lot of artists who go through tertiary education will find their lecturers or supervisors as mentors that they then call back on later on. Do you feel like the region has got a solid foundation for institutional education in the arts?
I mean, I don't really know enough about the education side of things to talk about it, but what I could say is in Kuwait, the strongest thing you could get is probably like an interior design major or a graphic design major. Like we don't have any, from what I've heard, at least, anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not big enough, you know, art history or art critique or fine art majors, you know, or fine art MFAs or any of that stuff. They don't exist here. I know they're starting to exist more and more around the region, but I think in Kuwait specifically, I haven't heard of any, which is weird, you know. I mean, like the best thing you can get is like a really strong art education in high school, which is what I got, you know, and that was intense. That was good. But I think I don't know. We don't really have enough of that. Not even like workshops or anything like strong workshops or private institutions, you know. We could use them. I'd be down to take the courses, you know. I'm okay with I think galleries or gallerists should learn how to actually paint, you know, or I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to draw anything. I think it would be cool to know the techniques, you know, to help.
I'm going to take up our last question because it actually really feeds into what I'm also wondering. And this is more of a comment, so bear with me for a moment. So maybe artists do financial support from the government. So the market is only an option for them and not the rule. This would be healthy for the whole scene as an ecosystem. Artists need physical studios and materials, time for research.
Yeah.
And I suppose that then kind of feeds back into my question of if the arts and if being an artist is not necessarily a profession that is quote unquote a business, and you are afforded time to be an artist, to think and to create, do you feel that perhaps you would see a more robust ecosystem within the region? And is this a way that can happen, or is this something that can happen within the society of the region?
To have art be a profession, you mean, like having artists be a profession? I mean, it would be cool if I think even globally, like usually artists, they have side jobs, or I think it's more of a miracle to want to be an artist full time. I think in terms of government financial support, I think basically it speeds up the process for sure. Like what's happening in Saudi, they're doing. I mean, like Saudi is like sort of the example of when institutions use government support in the best way possible or to their advantage. You know, like these private institutions, or sorry, government institutions, taking this funding and speeding up the entire ecosystem. Like that's cool because it's done in a good way, but it can easily not be done in a good way. And I think I prefer being like an underdog private institution that slowly works their way up to that. So I can even be the person that starts funding these sort of things and having full control over that, because I know what it looks like. You know, the whole reason why I'm doing this is because I wanted to be an artist in the first place, right? So I wanted to be a filmmaker, a photographer. So everything I do is looking back to what I wanted to see an institution do. Like if I was represented by a gallery, what would I want from the gallery? And I'm working towards that. So I put art aside because I think you need a lot of time to focus on that. Different artists work in different ways, you know, but yeah, I think that's what I think. I think government support speeds up the process, but it can easily be done in a lazy way. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I said it was the last question, but I'm going to throw you with one last, very last one. How has your experience been selling NFTs through Bawa?
NFTs, man. I feel like half of the people are going to leave now because they heard NFTs, man. No, because I'm all for NFTs. I think they have an insane position, position in the art market. I think they're here to stay for sure. I think a lot of people don't get them yet, and that's completely fine. I think you need to have some sort of idea into blockchain before you can understand NFTs. Yes, you can download an NFT and you can enjoy it like anyone can, but you don't own it. Like we've been through this conversation so many times. I'm sick of it, you know. But I think my experience selling NFTs, it comes down to one thing, which is because we don't have a basic foundation of the art market, we're nowhere close to ready to having the next step, which is NFTs. The other markets are doing that now. They're dipping their toes into NFTs still a very new market. But for me, we had two NFT exhibitions, one with Ahad Al Amoudi. That was the first NFT exhibition, weird abstract camels and stuff, which no one understood, which is exactly what we wanted. And then we had the next NFT show, which is with Abdullah bin Hindi, which is, he took his toys and he transported them into the digital metaverse or whatever. And those sold well. So there is some sort of progression with the NFT market, but as a region, we're not anywhere close. We're nowhere there yet. Yeah. So yeah.
Bandar, we're out of time. Thank you so much for speaking with us today, and thank you for all your amazing research as well into the art market and giving us a really holistic view of how the Middle East is sort of at least represent on the global stage. I think there's a lot for us to consider and go over. To everyone who's been an attendee today, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be having another lecture every month up until June. So I'll be sending out some invites. Keep your eyes peeled to the MISC Art Institute Instagram page. And until we speak again, thank you very much,
Oliver. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye now.
Yeah, bye-bye.